Call to action is, think in your head right now. You probably have an assignment you use every single year. I would like you to take the exemplar. When you go home tonight, I would like you to take the exemplar and one technical skill that you are teaching through a success criteria and convert that into a large language model output. Allow the student to use that step with a large language model that you approve and see if you would get the desired output you want with your exemplar. Now remember what I said from the beginning. I'm going to repeat one thing a lot. Your input is required. Prompt engineering is a technical skill that most teachers out of college are probably going to have to learn as a course. So I've provided you this tool that I've designed based on my best research of how large language models work. I have 20 minutes remaining, and I did want this to be a collaborative session with the workshop, so I guess I'll just seek questions if you have any.
Well, I'm wondering if you could give us the prompt for the first one.
Yeah. So you're a student working on, I actually did this with my students. I've done this worksheet with my students. And it's really fun to actually have AI, or excuse me, again, I'm trying to break this bad habit of calling it AI because it's not AI, it's a large language model. To put a large language model up on the board and have students come up and try their best and then get a totally wrong output based on their input. So for this one, you are a student working on a research project about climate change. Craft an AI prompt that can help you find reliable resources and information on the topic. So what I might say is develop a list of 10 peer-reviewed academic or government sources to help me learn about climate change in a research project. It tries to please you. So in pleasing you, it might develop a wrong output. In which case you might need some back and forth. So with my students, I would create a safe space, a safe environment. I actually have a poster in my classroom saying this is a safe space for AI. To make mistakes with AI. So a student makes a mistake, we didn't get a list. So for example, my student did not ask for academic or government sources, so we just got newspaper articles. And I asked the student, do you think these are appropriate sources? Are these primary sources? Are these secondary sources? And then we can go into some academic honesty discussions. Does anyone want to try out the second one? You are a tutor planning a lesson on Shakespeare's plays. Craft an AI prompt that can generate creative writing prompts based on Shakespearean themes.
Can you use the verb generate?
Sure you can. Sure you can. Any action verb.
Like literally generate a list of prompts.
Yeah.
You know, for, you know, the tempest, scene, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So looking at your puzzle, you started with an action verb. You followed with the parameters. Then you gave it a process, and you said, and I might give you a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
You did not provide a limit.
No, I didn't. I knew I had to get there.
So that was a great example. Let's move on to number 3, and maybe we'll have another brave student in the classroom. You are a student studying for a history exam. Craft an AI prompt that can generate multiple choice questions about significant historical events. And you can see my bias here, history being my bias.
Generate 20 multiple choice questions about Canada's role in World War II for me to practice for a history exam.
Very good. You rearranged limits and you put that before parameters, but that should be okay. That should be okay. I also have a colleague who recently took the IDC ABQ. That's a lot of acronyms, sorry guys. So the IDC course is the new computer technology course that you require an ABQ in order to teach. That ABQ, I've been told, depending on the university you go to, is a large language model training course. So that's the first I've noticed the college recognizing this as a required skill. I know universities are not doing it, so a lot of what I'm providing you is self-taught, and I'm sorry about that, but to the best of my knowledge, if you follow 1, 2, 3, and 4, you will probably get as close as you can to an appropriate output.
No, this is great because actually at our school we're doing a project within our school where we're looking at critical thinking in the era of AI and how our school has decided that our project is going to be around prompt generation as a future-ready job skill that students are going to have to know in order to be successful in the future at various.
Yeah, so to give you some data for that, 1/10 of all Indeed job ads right now require AI prompt engineering as a technical skill. It seems to be quite a wide range. So the bottom 3% of excelling writers use AI to augment their writing up to 20%. The top 20% of publishers are using AI to augment their publications up to 80%. And then there's a very wide range in between. But JSTOR has published that there's not a single academic journal that is entirely AI augmented. So yeah, it is required, and maybe you should take my card so that I can come and visit your school, and I'd be happy to give this again. And you had a question too.
Yeah, I did, the limits. I'm still struggling with the number. It doesn't come like a list of 10 sources. We put the number at the end.
Yeah, because when large language models are processing, it will do these things in order.
Ah, okay.
So it will do your action first, and then do the action using the parameters you provided. It will work through those parameters in a process you've defined, and then it will only stop if you've told it to stop. Otherwise, and if you read the little blurb under limits, it says AI will use limits that exist in available exemplars unless you define them. Use sensitivities, controversies, things you don't want it to talk about. So what I mean by that is if the internet has an exemplar similar to your prompt, it will use that as a limit unless you define it because it's trying to please you. So it'll find a teacher like you who has a similar output and try to provide you that output. Maybe I'll just open it up to general questions. If you have any general questions about large language models, definitely not for OCSB, but for the public board, I'm probably the preeminent person at this time. So if you have any questions, let me know. And if you don't want to speak to me now, I encourage you to reach out to me privately, either through the OCSB email that goes direct to my personal.
I have a question about this number 5.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be a list that you want? So like what, in your expertise, what prompt would you ask for? Like can you do a compare and contrast of pros and cons?
So for English teachers in the room, for the past 5-10 years, I'm sure your grammar lessons have been kind of falling on dead ears because we have spell check and we have Google's grammar checker. This is how you sell grammar to your kids again. So I actually do a verbs lesson before I do prompt engineering, giving them like a library of 30 or more verbs, and then I ask them to create 30 more and define them. So to give them a nice large vocabulary of terms. So for this one, I might go into my library of verbs or ask students, okay students, let's get out that resource we developed together, pull out and try to find in your resources the exact verb that you want. This worksheet was generated by a large language model. I purposely don't ask large language models to then generate the prompt, mostly because these prompts, if you read them, they do not follow APPL. So and actually most of my students do this when I'm doing it on the board. They will just simply copy and paste what I've written on this worksheet into AI and go, oh, I did not get what I wanted.
What kind of guidance can you give us or advice of like where to start if we're just, beginning to look at these tools?
If you're just starting, I would probably ask your students that question. What AIs are they using in the classroom? Right? And I have my poster up and I say, okay folks, I have an AI on my phone, I have AI on my device, this is a safe space, tell me what AIs you're using to try to cheat in my class. Yeah?
Yeah, sometimes I can use Gemini to draft a message to the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like, do you think the parent can go to that
Quillbot?
cool book
And check?
and check?
Actually, yeah, I might challenge that thinking just a little bit because I do use large language models to provide my students with feedback based on their writing. So Brisk is what I'd recommend for that because it will actually use the text of the student to pull out examples and write a full paragraph of feedback about how they can improve. I blew my coworker's mind a couple days ago. They said, well, Joel, what are you using AI for like yesterday? And I said, well, I marked 100 paragraphs in 3 hours. How about that? And I provided a paragraph feedback for each and every student in 3 hours. So if you do the math on that, that is 1 paragraph and a paragraph of feedback in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes. Now, I do get feedback from parents who are just like, well, is this authentic feedback? And I say, well, yes, because I am approving it, I'm editing it, I'm following the ethical guidelines of my board, and I really like the OCSB guidelines. So if you are reviewing it and approving of what it says, be overt with your students. Tell them, yeah, your feedback was large language model generated, but I agree with everything it said about your writing. And I also put it into my course outlines. Mr. Kennedy uses large language models to augment his classroom. And then also I get parents who are asking, mostly the parents who are asking for extension opportunities. For example, I have an IEP student. I just had a meeting with a parent about extension opportunities for giftedness. And the parent came in ready for a fight, absolutely ready for a battle.